come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2022 Coaster Rumble.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the thrilling 2022 Coaster Rumble. That's right, this is finally time to start finding out which rides are moving on through the first round of the Coaster Rumble. And much like last year, we're going to do this a little bit differently, Andy, than we did in the head-to-head format. And to be quite honest, we didn't even remember that we did it this way until we started doing some research. So we're going to do what we did last year. So tonight, you are going to see both the first round of the Coaster Rumble and the ranking round of the Coaster Rumble for the wood bracket in this year's thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble. So at the end of the show tonight, we will be down to our final four coasters on the wood bracket. Next week, we will do the same for the steel brackets. Traditionally in the head-to-head format, we did the first round for both brackets, then the second round, and so on and so forth. But last year, we felt that the discussion would flow a little bit nicer. We could spend some time talking about rides and sort of pause between the first round, talk about the rides that were remaining, because there's plenty. Last year, there were plenty of surprises with which rides did move on past that first round. So you and I got to reflect on that a little bit, if you will, before we saw what the rankings were. So we thought that would be appropriate to do again this year, and that was very well received last year as well. And at the time of recording here, we're recording it in advance, so we're still accepting submissions as we record this right now. And Andy, let me just say, at this point, I am very, very impressed with a lot of the submissions that we've gotten so far in the brackets. I am very impressed with how shit they are. And it's just amazing that after 10 years, people still don't understand how this works. I mean, they understand how it works, but it's just,
Well, I don't know. Some of them might not understand it yet,
And again, a reflection on the selection show from a couple weeks ago. The whole idea behind the Coaster Rumble last year was, people were getting really good at the head-to-head format. A lot of people were picking the same winners, and, the rankings were changing, but in general, we're seeing a lot of the same rides at the top, which is not unexpected, especially in the wood side when there's so few new wood coasters opening. We really got to rely on people who go on big road trips and ride new rides to see a lot of shifting. So the Coaster Rumble allowed us to change the format a little bit, number one, and give it a little bit of a different spin, but it also allowed us to have some input on which coasters got grouped together. And last year, they sort of nicely formed themselves. We found a lot of commonalities, manufacturers, locations, even like flames and explosives in the logos, I think. And then each bracket last year kind of had an oddball group where it was just everybody else who didn't fit into the other three. Whereas this year, we specifically set out to try and make each group as difficult as possible, whether it be the first round and selecting the four to move on, or the second round to actually rank them amongst each other. And at least so far, as of recording here, Andy, the average score is much, much lower than it was last year. So in that regard, so far,
you did a good job.
We've succeeded. Now, I don't know who's quit. And actually, earlier today, and I have not graded his yet, but we did get our submission from one Robert Raptor.
Oh, he did. Well, I can tell you, he's not coming in. That was quite the fight. So he's not coming in the top spot this year. I don't think. I think he had El Toro winning it all. So
well, that I mean, historically, that would certainly not win you the tournament. but there are worse choices. We've seen worse.
Well,
before, based on the rankings, there are worse choices. But we've kind of been joking that anyone who doesn't outscore Robert Raptor will be barred from participating next year. I don't know that we're actually going to do that. But it's fun to talk about because we'll see how he does at the end of the day. I haven't scored his yet, so I don't know if he's actually beaten anyone yet. But we'll have to see. So Andy, do you have any thoughts before we jump into the wood brackets here this evening?
No, I think we're at that point where I think just finding out which coasters I move on here. It's wood, so you would think that people would have a better idea, but I think some of those groupings, like you said, were kind of confusing. Especially throwing some of those middle ranked rides together. It's hard to figure out where they actually place. So I guess let's get to the first group.
Yeah, let's get to the first group, which is the Cook group, named after the late great Will Cook from Holiday World. We have El Toro, Goliath, Legend, Mystic Timbers, Phoenix, Raven, Ravine Flyer, and Voyage in this group. We had a lot of heavy hitters and a lot of traditional favorites that have typically done very well. And we talked in the selection show. There's 2 or 3 rides that are pretty much, pencil them into the second round, but the ranking of them is quite difficult. And then you really had to kind of pick and choose for your last 1 or 2 slots here, as to which ones you were going through. Now, I don't know how you feel about this, but do you want to tell people how Robert made his selections?
Oh hell, it's hard to remember. This one I do remember. This was El Toro, Raven, Phoenix, and Goliath. So he liked those 4 out of this group based on the pictures.
Now, what did you do? You printed them out on like little buttons?
Yeah. I got little pieces of paper that we make the pins out of. So printed them out, and then I laid them out for him. 8 there. And whichever ones he picked up first, that's how those are the ones he selected and ranked that way. So, like I said, I don't think he's those would not be the 4 I would select. However, 2 of those 4 I think are pretty good picks.
2 of those are pretty good picks.
And Goliath is that borderline pick that if I'm looking at this group, I'm debating between Goliath and Mystic Timbers myself. Which one's coming out? Obviously, El Toro, Phoenix, and Voyage should be the 3 that you zone in on pretty quickly. But Goliath and Mystic Timbers, I think, are the next ones out. I could be wrong about that, but those would be the 2.
Those 2 rides have always been right there. And I mean, Ravine Flyer has typically been in that discussion as well. I know that you're is not as much of a Ravine Flyer fan, but Raven and Legend are typically a little bit lower. So moving on out of the first round from the Cook group, we have El Toro, Mystic Timbers, Phoenix, and the Voyage. So it is indeed, and let's be fair, Andy, I'll say this. So far, at least from the submissions we've had so far, this is without question the group where the most people got those 4 correct. So in terms of selecting the 4 that get through the first round, this was the easiest one, at least at this point in time. El Toro, Mystic Timbers, Phoenix, and Voyage. So we've knocked out Goliath, we've knocked out Legend, we've knocked out Raven, and we've knocked out Ravine Flyer too. So now we sort of regroup here and try and figure out the rankings. And that all of a sudden becomes a much more difficult task, trying to rank these 4. The number 1 historically pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
But we saw El Toro drop a little bit last year down to number 5, the lowest it's ever been. So, and Phoenix has been gaining a lot of praise lately. It's won a different award programs, Top Wood Coaster Award the last couple of years. Mystic Timbers always, right there, top 10. So, those other 3, there's some potential for a little bit of mixing going on there.
And I'll be honest with you, I know a few years ago I did a bracket for real where I did not know the winners. I went out, and Phoenix was the ride that screwed me. I greatly overemphasized Phoenix, and I said I will never do that again. So in my mind, Phoenix is not that ride. So this one to me should be pretty easy to rank with Voyage, El Toro, Phoenix, Timbers. If you could get those 4, I think based on past history, I think that's a pretty even, pretty good prediction.
And I think again, this did seem to be the ranking of all of the groups, both wood and steel, really. And we're not talking about the steel this week, but it is the group that the most people had the rankings correct to, and most people just had two shuffled, whether it was the middle two or the last two. Again, most people picking Voyage to go all the way on the wood side. So obviously most of them having it winning this group. Now the folks who didn't have, say, like a Mystic Timbers or a Voyage going through, then it was kind of a little bit of a wild card, what your 3 and 4 rides were, but generally most people had at least 3 of those 4 correct. And then the rankings might shuffle a little bit there. So the order going from 4th up to 1st in the Cook group, in 4th we have Mystic Timbers. In 3rd is Phoenix. 2nd is El Toro. And moving on to the final 4, the winner of the Will Cook group is the Voyage from Holiday World. So Andy, did I say 4-time defending champion, 5-time overall champion in the Voyage, has won every year since 2017 in the wood side here. Voyage is going back to the final 4 once again. And let's be honest, that is not a surprise to really anyone.
Yeah, that's I think this one was probably one of the more straightforward groupings.
And the submissions reflect that, because people did very, very well in both phases of this group.
Yeah. So this one's not all that surprising to me whatsoever.
No, I agree. This one really was chalk. It was a loaded group, but a group that when you got down and sit down and looked at it, was probably a fairly easy one to get some points in. So again, 1 point in the first round for each correct selection of the 4 that move on. And in round 2, you get 2 points for each coaster that is correctly ranked in each of the 4 slots. If you picked Ravine Flyer instead of Mystic Timbers to go on, and you had the other 3 right, and you had the 3 rankings, and you had Ravine Flyer 4th, you do not get points. You have to have the correct coaster selected from that first round. So again, this is one of the interesting things, and I use this term in the selection show, if you make an error on one of those 4 rides in the first round, it concatenates into the next round too. And again, for those of you who are not in the software engineering, it's to link in a chain, right? To sort of carry over. So that's what that word means. And what was the word that you used?
Who knows? I use
deference or something.
A dissonance.
Dissonance. That's what it was. You are correct there, sir. Yeah. Well done. So people get vocabulary lessons here. 32 Coaster Rumble as well. All right. So what do you say we move on to our second group, which is the Larry Bill group? And Now, Andy, this is one where we have a couple of rides that have always done very, very well and that people are really big fans of. Then we have a couple of rides that, people sort of question because they're not very well ridden. So we've got Boardwalk Bullet, we've got the Coaster from P&E Playland, we've got Ghost Rider, we've got Gold Striker, we've got Rampage, we've got Renegade, we've got Texas Stingray, first time in the Thrilling 32, which, big question mark on Texas Stingray, like we said in the selection show, was number 33 last year, but because of how few people got to ride it, really a big question mark on Texas Stingray, whether or not that was a ranking that you can really trust this year. And then finally, we've got Tremors from Silverwood. So we've got rides like Rampage, Renegade, Ghost Rider, Gold Striker, 4 rides that are very well regarded, have always done pretty well in this poll, have a lot of riders. And then Boardwalk Bullet, Coaster, Tremors, Texas Stingray, those are 4 rides that very few people have ridden. Coaster, like we said, was a top 4 ride last year and is one that a lot of people question because so few people have ridden it, yet continues to do well year after year. So where do you sort of start and where do you end when you're looking at which 4 get through to the second round?
Well, and this is, like I said, one of those tough groups because you're playing the middle here and trying to figure out, well, where do these things land? If I had to guess, not knowing what the results were, I would say Rampage, Coaster, Ghost Rider, Gold Striker, not in that order, but those are the 4 you would pick.
Right. I think that was the most, and again, I haven't run the numbers and we're still getting submissions in, but I want to say of the ones I've seen so far, that was the most common group of 4 to be picked from this group. That seemed to be the popular selection. Some people swapped out Rampage for Renegade. Some people had swapped out Rampage for Texas Stingray, maybe thinking that Texas Stingray was going to get a little bit of a boost this year, being open for a full year. So a couple people leaving out Gold Striker altogether. A couple people leaving out Coaster altogether. Some people throwing Boardwalk Bullet in there instead. I of the ones I've seen so far, I think Tremors might have even been in there in one of 2. So I think all 8 of these rides were selected by at least a couple of people to move on.
Yeah, and that's the tough part, is when you're dealing with this middle group, it's hard to figure out, is there jockeying going on from previous years? But those would be I think those 4. Oh, let's see.
All right. So moving on to the second round out of the Bill group is the Coaster from Peony Playland, Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm, Gold Striker from California's Great America, and Renegade from Valley.
That's surprising. That's surprising. I would not have guessed Renegade.
Has historically outranked Renegade. So Renegade moving on, not Rampage. That is a little bit of an upset here. Not much, but it is a little bit of an upset based on how this poll has gone in the past.
Yeah, and just in my own rankings, I think Rampage is a far better ride than Renegade. But Renegade's a fine ride too, so don't get me wrong.
I think they're both vastly underrated. I think we can say that.
Yeah, that's now this is even tougher to put in order now.
Well, now, okay, so we've knocked out Boardwalk Bullet, we've knocked out Rampage, we have knocked out Texas Stingray, and we've knocked out Tremors. So now moving forward with Coaster, Ghost Rider, Gold Striker, and Renegade, now all of a sudden you've got Coaster sitting there, which has been like sort of the dark horse the last couple of years, right? Number 4 last year.
Yeah.
And then you've got 3 big bad GCIs. I'm calling Ghost Rider a GCI because for all intents and purposes, it really is now. And you've got to wonder now, Ghost Rider has continuously been on the rise. Gold Striker was a Final 4 ride last year. And now you've got to start to question Renegade, because to beat out Rampage, I think at this point, it's kind of obvious Renegade has moved up. So now the question is becoming, how much?
Oh, man. This is real tough. If I had to go a route, I would say Coaster, Gold Striker, Ghost Rider, Renegade. That's
still putting Renegade down at the bottom there.
Yeah, I would. Well, it's hard. And the problem with this is it's always hard to separate your personal opinions from this. Like, and granted, I'm not looking at any past results or anything like that. So I'm not doing any research here. But just.
Well, that's the name of the game here, is trying to separate that personal opinion from, the history and the collective rankings.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see what the rankings are here in the Bill group. In 4th, we've got Renegade. So is Renegade. In 3rd, Andy, the Coaster is 3rd.
What happened there?
Yeah. So Coaster is in 3rd. In 2nd, Ghost Rider.
Well, that I don't disagree with.
And winning the Bill group, moving on to the Final 4 again this year, is Gold Striker from California's Great America by what I'm going to suspect is a very thin margin. Gold Striker keeping the title of the California Wood Coaster King over Ghost Rider. But Andy, so let's be frank here. People have been against the Coaster. Like, why is that ride ranked so high? I don't understand that ride. And I'll be honest with you, I said it on the road trip rundown before I went and rode it. I don't get it. I don't see it. I don't understand how that ride could be a top 15, top 20 ride, but it most certainly is. And people seem to finally be on the Coaster train this year, because lots and lots of people have it going to the Final 4, and now it comes in 3rd. So people are going to hate the Coaster for all sorts of different reasons.
Well, here's the problem. It comes in 3rd. in this group. That
Right.
keep in mind that last year it placed number 4 overall.
Yeah.
Like and Gold Striker was 9, Ghost Rider was 10. So either Ghost Rider and Gold Striker jumped up a lot, or Coaster has just taken a tumble out of this rumble here. So that's I don't disagree.
In actuality, it's probably a combination of both a little bit, right? But I mean,
yeah, but like, whew, Coaster, and I always thought Coaster at 4 seemed a little bit outlandish.
And Coaster at 4 is high. I mean, I love the Coaster, and 4 is high. I mean, personally, I think top 10 is still a little high for it. I have it in my mid to lower. I think I have it in the 18, 19 range, which is a tremendous ride. But still,
2019 it was 7, and I think was it in 2018 it was 6. So it's never been under Gold Striker or Ghost Rider. So
game's changing here a little bit.
So something's happened in that, and it was 11. Oh, well, here we go. So back in 2017 it was ranked 11, and Gold Striker was higher than in 2017. So maybe we're just going back and settling in. Maybe that one guy who really loved Coaster didn't vote this year. So I don't know.
And keep in mind that a handful of us did go up and ride it in 2018. So again, myself and some friends of ours, we went up and rode it that year. So it made sense that there was a little bit of a shift in where it was that year. I don't know who's ridden it the last couple years. It's real interesting to see what has progressed here with the P&E Coaster. I mean, still it's in the top 4 in this group. And this is a pretty solid group. It's still outranked rides like Rampage and Tremors. So it's still a pretty good ranking, but I think that might be a little bit more reflective of Gold Striker and Ghost Rider than it actually will end up being of Coaster in the end.
Well, and I've always said Ghost Rider has been criminally underranked.
And it has been the last couple of years, and we've seen it. We talked about it in the selection show. The trend of Ghost Rider is still going up. So I mean, seeing it second in this group, I think there's no reason to believe that Ghost Rider won't be higher than it's ever been when we get down to the championship show and see the
it's hard to tell because it's always been neck and neck with, like, the past few years with Gold Striker. So it's still neck and neck. So we just know Coaster's dropped.
Well, and as people go to ride out to California, a lot of them probably ride these two rides together. So it makes sense that, whether they're riding Gold Striker or the new Ghost Rider for the first time, or revisiting them and riding the other one for the first time, it makes sense that these two might move up in tandem.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we've got Gold Striker moving on to the Final Four. We've got Voyage against Gold Striker as a Final Four matchup. I think that was a Final Four matchup last year, too.
It feels like it's a Final Four matchup every year. So.
It kind of does, doesn't it? So we've got that matchup again in the Final Four coming up in a couple weeks. Let's move on to the other half of the bracket. Let's move to the keeper group here. And this is where we see, we got a little bit of everything here. We got a couple GCIs, couple gravity groups, couple of RMCs, a couple of old CCIs, a little bit of everything. If you like a certain manufacturer, we've got them here in this group here. We've got Boulder Dash, we've got Hades 360, we've got Lightning Rod, we've got Mind Blower, Outlaw Run, Prowler, Shivering Timbers, and Thunderhead. Now, this feels to me, and Andy, I want your opinion. This feels to me a little bit like that first group where there's 2 or 3 that you're fairly certain about, and then that fourth one is the big challenge that you've got to try and pick right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So obviously Outlaw, Lightning Rod, Boulder Dash are 3 perennial favorites in this poll. So I think that's the biggest choice, and then. Mind Blower is always on that verge of dropping in or out. Hades is one of those that just seems to stick around. Prowler is criminally underranked in this poll, so you can just throw that one out too. And then Thunderhead is kind of that wild card. Is it? where was Thunderhead even ranked last year?
Thunderhead, I think, was like 24.
Like
Like
20, it was
Thunderhead
23 last year. So another
Thunderhead
one.
has like slowly gone down each and every year, not by much, but every year it seems to drop a little bit more and more. So, I mean, are you looking at possibly a ride like Prowler maybe finally being ahead of Thunderhead?
No, because this poll hates Prowler for some reason. I don't give Prowler, like I think.
You know what? Unfortunately, you are right, because honestly, when you look at this group, Prowler should probably be in the top 4. I think
absolutely. I would actually go more with Hades, because Hades is one of those rides that is always kind of like, it always surprises me every year as to how high Hades is actually ranked in this poll.
Hades is like that ride that always kind of seems to rank higher than you think it ought to. But
and really last year Prowler ranked over Hades, so maybe I'm just wrong about, like, that's like it goes Prowler was 24, like Hades was 26
a couple years ago.
So it's like Hades is one of those that bounces around too, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, it's a little bit of the Sky Rush effect that we've seen.
Because Hades in 2019 was ranked 19th, so it's like, what the hell, you know? Like, and Prowler was 29, so like Prowler is never liked in this poll, but Hades is one of those that you never know.
If Hades is 19 or in that neighborhood, that might be good enough for 4th in this group based on where some of those others have been.
Yeah, and I think 2020 seems to be the outlier. I'm just looking back at the previous 2018, Hades was like 17th. So it looks like 2020 with Hades being more towards the bottom of 26. It seems to be the outlier, but who knows? Maybe new people have ridden it and don't like it. I've actually never been on Hades 360, so I really can't. I've been on the original. I was on the original Hades, so I've never gone upside down on that ride, nor do I know if I want to go upside down at Mount Olympus, to be completely honest with you.
Well, you know that the brakes won't work in the station. They'll let you go a second time. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, that happens sometimes there. So just keep on going. Yeah, so I would probably give this one to Hades personally. The 3, you know, and then after that, Shivering Timbers, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think Prowler and Shivering Timbers, I think, were the most popular choices for that 3rd slot, or that 4th slot. You know, and there were some Thunderheads, and there were some Hades 360s as well. There was a nice mix of you know, where that 4th slot was, but generally people in agreement with that top 3. So moving on, out of the keeper group, we've got Boulder Dash, we've got Lightning Rod, we've got Outlaw Run, and Thunderhead.
What?
So Thunderhead is the final ride moving on out of this group. So we've eliminated Hades 360, we've eliminated Mind Blower, and we've eliminated both Prowler and Shivering Timbers.
Well, I can tell you that that Robert Raptor selected both Boulder Dash and Thunderhead, so he's going to be picking up a couple points.
Good on him there. Now wait a minute. Now wait a minute. Did he? What about the other 2?
No. I think he picked Hades, and
he doesn't like RMCs.
Yeah, he doesn't like RMCs, so he picked Boulder Dash, Thunderhead, Shivering Timbers, and Hades. So,
Shivering Timbers isn't a bad pick either. I mean that.
No, he and Hades realistically, he was just picking that bottom group. He was making sure he got that 4th one right.
he was going for the difficult ones.
Yes.
So he's gonna be an impressive last place, is what you're telling me.
Yes. He's gonna be like, you know what? I had all the wild cards correct. It's just I couldn't get the champions right.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Which is, to be fair, that's how this tournament went the first couple of years. The first couple of years, our winners didn't have either champion, right?
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe he will win based on what you're talking about here.
Yeah. So we've got Boulder Dash, Lightning Rod, Outlaw Run, and Thunderhead as the 4 moving on here.
So now comes the interesting part, because
this is the part here. Go ahead.
Because now you have to make the choice, because Outlaw and Lightning Rod have always been neck and neck. You know,
2-3 the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So now you've got to ask yourself, does the whole Lightning Rod retract thing, does that rear its head now?
Yeah, because I think your 3 and 4 coaster out of this group are pretty clear. Boulder Dash, Thunderhead. That I don't think that's going to change. But you got to really make that choice of Lightning Rod Outlaw, and
Andy, I've got news for you. Again, still accepting submissions at the time of recording here. There's a good number of people, I don't know if it's the majority, but a good number of people selecting Outlaw Run to win this group.
Yeah, and that's I don't think that's a bad pick. It's a 50-50 shot here.
I predicted that 2 years ago, and it didn't happen, but does it happen now?
Well, and that's what makes this grouping all the more diabolical, is the fact that you did this.
Well, this is why we did this. I mean, let's be frank. We tried to do this.
Yeah.
Because picking Thunderhead as the fourth ride in, I mean, that was difficult enough. Not a lot of people did that. So, now.
Oh, except for Robert Raptor. He did that.
He did. We'll give him credit there. He might have not had the top two right, potentially. He had 3 and 4 right, didn't he? So, okay, if you had to decide, where would you fall in it? I think personally, I predicted this a couple years ago. So I think I would want to stay on the train of Outlaw Run is going to beat Lightning Rod finally, and that Outlaw Run would be going to the Final Four. I think that's where I would come down if it were me filling out a bracket here. What about you?
Well, here I'm gonna look at this real quick. And I'm gonna go to the percentages. And Lightning Rod has always been a number of percentage points above Outlaw. So even though they've been neck and neck, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, whatever it is, Lightning Rod has always defeated Outlaw by full percentage points, most of the time between 2 and 3 percentage points. Right. So it would take a lot, I think, for Outlaw to overcome Lightning Rod. Does it happen this year? I don't think so. But I think as more and more people start dropping it off their wood list for whatever reason, I don't even know why you would, but people do.
Well, some people don't rank what they consider defunct rides.
I don't understand that. Like,
I don't either. I rank defunct rides.
Yeah, I don't understand it. So, and like Lightning Rod has been challenging Voyage. Like, it's not like in Outlaw's always been like, the next one out. So I'm going to stick with Lightning Rod on this one.
Okay. And that's fair reasoning. I don't think I could argue against anything that you just said there. So
yeah, because I'm just looking back always, and Lightning Rod is always full percentage points, like versus like when Lightning Rod and Voyage at its height when it was 0.04%, that separated the two.
Like Steel Vengeance and Untamed in 2019.
Yeah.
And when Expedition G-Force beat Fury in 2016, I mean, those were some of the closest finishes in history.
Yeah. So like this, I just don't think this is the year. I don't, however, believe that that's always going to be the case. So
I think
unless I keep shaming people into ranking Lightning Rod in their wood rankings, which I've just done. So
well, true. So, all right. So let's see how these rides ranked here. I don't think it's any surprise that Thunderhead is number 4 and Boulder Dash is indeed number 3. Now, here's the moment of truth for some of you. For a good number of you, this is your moment of truth, because between Lightning Rod and Outlaw Run, many of you, I would say most of you, had your selection between those two going to the championship matchup. So this is a moment here that could affect 2-3 rounds down the road, potentially. So in second place in this group, Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. Ooh. Lightning Rod hangs on. Lightning Rod wins the group. Lightning Rod going back to the Final Four. So pretty clearly, at least in the year 2021, the whole Lightning Rod conversion to mostly steel coaster thing does not seem like it has affected its standing pretty much at all, right? Because if it's above Outlaw Run, it's above Boulder Dash, we're probably pretty certain that this is probably still a top 2 ride.
Yeah. I would assume so at this point.
Now, here's another thought, because we didn't talk about this on the selection show. What about the prospect of the retrack maybe giving people a better opinion of Lightning Rod and maybe it now winning again. We didn't talk about that at all. And we haven't even talked about that off air. So this is the first.
Here's I'm going to throw out this question.
And I just thought about that right now. I haven't even thought about that myself until this very moment.
What if people aren't counting it as steal?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly, right? So now it's smoother.
We talked all about would it fall. We didn't talk about the prospect of it maybe rising.
Because okay, so they put a few pieces of steel track on it. It's still, 60% versus 40%. Who gives a shit, So is it a smoother ride? And people are just like, well, it's always been a wood coaster. I'm just going to continue ranking as wood. And now it's a smoother ride and they fixed the pothole. Is this thing gonna move up the rankings and win?
It would be like if it was Iron Rattler with Leviathan Speed Hill.
Oh. Now you're onto something.
That would be a damn good ride.
My goodness. That's an interesting prospect. That and really, we can't tell the voters. Like, I can't sit here in good conscience and tell the voters that that's a steel coaster or a wood coaster. Like, I don't know myself if it's steel or wood. It's 50-50. So, like, honestly, if you're ranking it in your steel coaster or your wood coaster, I can't blame you either way. I think on our Uncut show or whenever we did that episode, I think that was the conclusion we came to, was that we don't know. You can go either way. It's really up to you. So maybe the ride experience has improved. Did you ride it this year?
I did.
Is it better? Is it a better ride? Smoother?
Smoother, certainly. And
we got a new champion here, folks.
Smoother, certainly. Now, but here's the thing, and I don't know how I would have been able to do this any other way, but because we got an actual number of how much track was replaced and we were able to calculate, it's about 58%, I think, is what we calculated. So it's more than half of the ride. So
by a slim margin, though.
So it's basically the entire launch and drop and everything like that. And then you can indeed feel coming out of the wave turn where it goes back to the topper track. You can definitely feel, because it does have a little bit more of the shimmy shake to it, which, again, wood coaster guy, I need my pin up here, but I like a little bit of the shimmy shake to it. And then it turns back into the iBox track, I think, like right as you get up to the top of the quad down, and then the rest of it, including the quad down and the final turn, is the steel iBox track. I think the experience is ever so slightly improved, despite me being the wood coaster guy. It doesn't have the potholes anymore. I think it's a slightly more enjoyable experience. The ride itself is really the same. I mean, the airtime is the same. The speed is the same. The force, the insanity is the same, but it's slightly smoother. It doesn't have the potholes. And I would say it's slightly more re-rideable if you have your ERTs or your marathons on it. So how are people approaching that? We truly
and honestly, like, the part of the ride that, if you're telling me that the whole lift hill is steel now, like, the lift hill is usually one of the most meaningless parts of the ride. Like, yeah, it's the launch here,
and the launch is still better than a traditional chain lift.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, like, what should count as the ride. So when you take the 58%, if you're counting the entire lift hill, which is a good chunk of the overall footage of the ride, and you take that out, okay, well, the majority of the actual ride, once you get off the first drop, is still wood. Like, it's
the lift hill. It's the lift hill all the way through the end of the wave turn. It goes from steel.
But what
back
I'm saying that is, if you take off the lift hill.
Oh, I see. It's about 50-50, yeah.
Or maybe even under 50. But then you could say, well, you got to take off, like, the station too, and the transfer track and
the brakes, which are still wood. So
so it's a lot of crap. But, like,
you can make that a math problem. You can make that math problem look like anything you want, really.
So, like, honestly, that's an interesting perspective here that I think we're gonna have to wait and see on. Like, I think it's I think there's a real shot here, and I think it's. I wonder if anyone else came to that conclusion too, because I know we did not up until right now.
We did not, and perhaps we purposely did not until after submissions were over, because
I didn't even think about it. I just thought it would go down.
Didn't even think about it at all. Yeah. So, Voyage and Lightning Rod have always been so close.
Yeah. This is the year. Yeah.
There's
so many
Voyage
jokes.
gets unseated. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly seems like Lightning Rod's going to take another damn good crack at it, because it's. I mean that's Yankees, Red Sox. That's Avalanche, Red Wings. That's Michigan, Ohio State. At this point, is Voyage Lightning Rod.
I don't know if it's that important, but yeah.
Well, maybe to wood coaster people it is. But moving on to our final group, the Jeff Pike group, and this was our European group, because Andy, in the selection show, you were both overjoyed at the absence of the Beast, and then very somber that you had to talk about 8 rides from Europe.
Well, if there was ever a group, because at least a steel European group, at least there's something to talk about there.
This is as bad gets for
this
you.
This year talking wood coasters and European coasters. This is like, I could care less what happens here. So I honestly have nothing to say here besides probably, I'm guessing Wildfire was one. Outside of that, I have no idea.
Well, I know you have at least one other thing to say.
Well, I still don't know what's Rushtabanen. So
what the hell is Rushtabanen?
I still have no idea. Is that a ride? Or is this a flat ride too? Like, I have no idea what's going on here.
Is that a park?
Is that it's yeah? Well, I know it's not the park because the park's listed underneath it.
Right,
so,
well, that
Colossus, that could be the park. Is it at the Park Kampf der Giganten? I don't even know. It's not in English, so how the hell should I know?
Got a subtitle now. It does.
Yeah, subtitles.
Yeah,
and
so
most of the subtitles aren't even spelled correctly. Like Timber is Timber, correct? Is it B? Timber?
Not in Germany, evidently.
Well, apparently not in Germany, but
we haven't even named which rides are in this group. So we've got Balder, we've got Colossus, we've got Q Cullen, we've got Joris and the Drac. What the hell is Rutschebanen?
Yeah.
Troy, Wildfire, and Wodan Timber Coaster. This is odd because, Wodan's had a couple of really good years. Wildfire's had a couple of really good years. Troy's had several real good years. Balder's had some real good years. And then, Q Cullen, Joris and the Drac, and Rutschebanen are fairly new to the party here. And Colossus was once high, then fell out, now refurbished back in. And, Colossus was a popular pick of the 4 to move on here. Typically, it was replacing either Balder or Wodan. Most people selecting Wildfire and Troy to move on. And Balder and Colossus are not that dissimilar. I mean, they're both the intimate plug-and-play style Woodies. Colossus more of an out and back, like an El Toro, type of layout, whereas Balder's more compact, sort of like a Twister Cyclone style. So moving on out of the first round, out of the Pike group is Balder from Liseberg, Troy from Toberlin, Wildfire from Kilmartin, and Wodan Timber Coaster from Europa Park. So no Colossus moving on here, despite it rising in the rankings the last couple of years. Joris and the Drac has never advanced past the first round. Neither has Q Cullen, and obviously Rutschebanen has been knocked out in the first round each of its first 2 years in the Thrilling 32. So now
it might not even be a coaster for all we know.
Technically, I don't think you would count it as a coaster because it's one of those old scenic railways, so it does not have upstops.
Well,
it's basically like Leap the Dip. So did you make a special exception for Leap the Dip?
I did, because it takes a defined path. And
okay, well then I think you would make an exception for this ride as well.
Yeah, probably, most likely. I draw the line at bobsled coasters. Like, come on, they're
I thought the line used to be wagons rolling down hills.
Well, essentially that's what a bobsled coaster is. So I don't see the difference.
The ground is just shaped like a cup.
Well, yeah, it's like a wagon down a water slide. Is that a roller coaster? No. Like, get out of here.
Well, we know one Walter Parker who might be counting.
Yeah. All of a sudden we're counting okay, so does Boulder Beast doesn't have like a few wheels on the bottom? Is that a roller coaster now? Like, get the hell out of here.
Well, yeah. We've knocked out Colossus, Q Cullen, Joris and the Drock, and Rich Shabanan. So now we've got Balder, Troy, Wildfire, and Wodan here. So all of a sudden,
Wildfire's number one out of that group.
And what about after that?
Once again,
your answer is who cares? I know.
Who cares?
Well, Troy did quite well last year. I think was Troy 12 last year. It was top 10 at one point. I think Wodan's kind of.
Well, I might as well do something and find out these numbers for you. So Troy was 12. Yeah. Okay. Balder was. I don't even see it on the list.
That was in last year.
Oh, it was 21. So Rushtabanen, Joris, and Drak were both higher than Balder last year. So that's interesting. Colossus was higher too. So out of that group, Balder was towards the bottom. Colossus, Rushtabanen, and Joris and Drak were all higher than Balder.
And Troy was 12?
Troy was 12.
And where was Wodan last year, you said?
Wodan, I'm assuming it was higher. I don't know. Where the hell is Wodan?
I want to say it was like 15. It wasn't far below Troy.
Oh, there it is. Wodan was 15. Yeah.
15. Okay, and then what about Wildfire? That's the only one we didn't.
Wildfire was 8. So that's why I said it should be number 1.
Oh, okay. So, but they were, because Wildfire one year, I think, was like 3 or 4. So
Wildfire's dropped.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a little bit of question here. All right. So the
question was Balder. How the hell Balder got in? But it's
well. Stay tuned. Stay tuned, because you're going to be more confused in about 15 seconds here. So the ranking in the Pike group here, in 4th is Wodan Timber Coaster.
Okay.
In 3rd is Troy. Okay. People are shitting their collective pants here.
What the hell?
Yeah, that's right. In 2nd is Balder, and in 1st, moving on to the final 4, Andy correctly predicted, is Wildfire. So, Andy, what the hell is going on here?
Well, it's clear that even people who rank European wood coasters have no idea what they're ranking. So that's what's clear to me here now.
Well,
what the hell? Hold on. Let me go back to the previous year. Has this ever been the case? Let's go back to 2019.
You're trying to find out if
so 2019
rides have ever been ranked in this particular order.
No. So it was Wildfire, Troy, Wodan, then Balder. Joris and Drak was lower. And obviously Rushtabanen, we didn't know that was actually a ride back then. So
and Q Cullen, I think, had dropped in and out.
Yeah, it was down towards the bottom. But so 2019, Balder was not higher than those two. I'm just looking at Balder in comparison to the other two.
But
Balder was 10.
Balder had a couple of years where it was like border. I think it was even like 8 or 9 one year.
Yeah, so Balder was 10 in 2018. And Troy was 28 and Wodan was 23, but that was before you fools went out there, right?
That is correct. That is before that's before us marks went and rode.
Yeah, the job squad took a trip to Europe.
Yeah.
So it's actually.
Well, I haven't mentioned it yet in the show. 2023 Scandinavia. So expect Wildfire to move around. I don't know.
Well, that was the year Wildfire was up. Will you be riding Balder on that trip as well?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, so there we go. So
well, actually, if we hit all the parks planned, we'll ride the other 3 of that group that we have not yet ridden, which would be Balder, Rushtabanen, and Wildfire.
Well, and then you can definitively tell us if it's a flat ride or not.
Well, that'll be thankful. Well,
but your opinion of roller coasters and what is not a roller, I don't know if we can trust you either. So I would probably have to go right.
So, Andy, we have our wood final 4 set, and I think 3 of them, when you look at the field as a whole, 2 of them, not much of a surprise, but we've got Voyage going up against Gold Striker on the left half. And then on the right half, we've got Lightning Rod going up against Wildfire. So Lightning Rod, and Outlaw Run, you had that decision there. battle of the RMCs, but it's another battle of the RMCs with Lightning Rod and Wildfire. So what are your thoughts on our
and
final?
that doesn't necessarily mean that those are 1, 2, 3, 4 either. So like it could be 1, 2, 8, 12 for all we know.
Sure.
But I think it's pretty clear that you're going to have Voyage over, what was it?
Voyage is going against Gold Strike.
Yeah, that one's clear. We know the winner there. And then we got Wildfire and Lightning Rod. In theory, unless Wildfire is back to the old form of that 1 year where it ranked
was
3.
number 3 directly below Lightning Rod 1 year not too long ago. So
but then again, we were saying that Lightning Rod was going to win the whole damn thing not more than 10 minutes ago. So
that is very true. But with the proliferation of some of the European rides that we've
$5 word.
Oh, yeah, another one, right? I'm doing pretty good here this season. So we still rides like Zadra, Ride to Happiness, Fly, Helix comes back in, which is up there in Sweden. So, is that, just those rides being in the Thrilling 32, does that suggest that perhaps there is a little bit of a boost for some of these European rides that might suggest that Wildfire may have moved up this year?
Yeah, I think it's a real possibility. Like I really want to say, and we don't know where Outlaw ranked either, because Outlaw could be in that mix too. Outlaw, we know, is not number 1. We know it's not number 2. Correct?
We do not know that. We just know it's not. Lightning Rod could be.
Oh, if Lightning Rod won, then Outlaw could in theory be number 2. So. So there's always that Outlaw Run in the mix too.
Now history tells you Outlaw Run is no greater than 3 because you've got Voyage on the other side, right?
Yeah.
But certainly mathematically Outlaw Run could be as high as 2.
Yeah. So an interesting idea. I don't know. I would tend to think Wildfire does not beat Lightning Rod, but after you fools go out there, it's going to be a whole new game. So we'll see.
Well, it most certainly is, because, if Wildfire is bopping around here in the top, let's say it's just bopping around the top 10, when we get a bunch of our voters going out to ride rides at once. I mean, we saw it with rides like the Ultimate. We saw it with rides like Smiler and Nemesis. Nemesis came back up. We saw it with rides like Blue Fire, who were historically in the Thrilling 32 every year and dropped out after a large group of people go and ride it. So we've seen that go both ways.
I don't see it beating your girlfriend, Voyage, but I don't see that happening. But I do think there's something to be said there. So we'll see.
All right. So once again, we've set our Wood Final 4 here. We've got Voyage going up against Gold Striker, and we've got Lightning Rod going up against Wildfire. So there you have it for the Coaster Rumble portion of the Wood bracket. Again, we will be doing the Steel brackets round 1 and 2, the Coaster Rumble phase next week for the Steel coaster. So we'll get down to our Steel Final 4, then we'll follow that up the following week with our semifinals. We'll get down to our finalists, and then finally our championship show with the full top 50 ranking after that, and of course the winner of the bracket challenge, followed by the Thrilling 32 Hall of Fame. So that's what you have to look forward to over the next month or so here, Andy. So do you have any final thoughts for our folks after all the fun happenings this evening?
No, was some surprises in there. So I think we're going to see a few. This ranking is going to look different. That I think a lot of people were just assuming that it was going to look a lot like last year's ranking, and that seems not to be the case whatsoever. So we're gonna have a new top 32, and yeah, we 31 of the 32 rides are the same, but we're gonna see some movement there. So it'll be interesting to see how that movement lays out at the end.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 31 out of the 32 rides the same, but at the end of the day, certainly some shifting. I mean, biggest surprises for me, Coaster being third in its group, I think is certainly up there, and Renegade advancing out of that second group. I think those are the two biggest surprises for me personally there. You know,
I
those
think Renegade is less of a surprise than Coaster dropping so much.
Yeah, I think that really the only surprise really is Renegade beating out Rampage. I think that's one that people really didn't.
Well, Renegade was 17 last year. Rampage was 13. Ravine Flyer was 16. So it's in that discussion, you know.
Okay, so then I think I would say Coaster being third in in that particular group. I think that's the big surprise of the evening.
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. So
and again, from the ones that have been submitted so far, that one's busted quite a few brackets because there are a number of people who had that as a Final Four contestant this year. So people are going to be hating the P&E Coaster again this year for a whole different set of reasons. So there you go. All right. Anything else for the folks, Andy?
Nope.
I think we're pretty much.
I think I've said enough tonight.
Yeah. So look forward to the Steel Coasters next week, guys.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
You guys.